Welcome back to another episode of the North Star Takes podcast. I'm Bailey Paulicki. He's Jacob Alberta. We're a Minnesota sports podcast. So if you're a Minnesota sports fan in general, please hit the subscribe button. And if you're a Timberwolves fan, give this video a like. We're going to be doing some Timberwolves talkers here today. Just a few things have gone on basically over the last week or so. Well, some of it's been over the last month or so, really. But just some interesting stuff to talk about the Timberwolves. Obviously, they remain an intriguing team as they're on quite the win streak here. We're recording this before the last game against the Kings, but they're riding a 5-game win streak going into that game. Assuming, they take care of business, hopefully it can get to 6 here. But let's talk about maybe like the most controversial topic maybe with the Wolves going on right now. And it's D'Lo's comment about the fans, calling them quiet ass fans, to quote him. Do you have any issue with this, or do you think he's right and kind of has a point? What are your thoughts on his comments about the Wolves fans being a little quiet at Target Center?
I feel like everybody can make some fair points here, no matter which angle you come at this from or which side you're really on. Because from D'Lo's perspective, I honestly like him challenging the fans that really get behind this team and embrace it, because this is the best one we've had outside of the Jimmy year since 2004. So I think this is something worth getting excited about. But on the other hand, when you think of it from like the fans' perspective, I could see how they'd be a little bit hesitant to really get out there and shout it on the rooftops that like I am a Timberwolves fan and this is my brand. Like that's come with a fair level, or I should say more than a fair level of embarrassment over the years when you consider this team's history, especially since that 2004 season I just referenced when we went to the Western Conference Finals. KG was MVP. Ever since, it's been all downhill. Yeah. So really, I can see the hesitancy there, and then also it's not really all in the fans either, because like when you go to Target Center, I feel like they're 23rd in attendance this year, so that's not great. Yep. I feel like the Wolves could do a better job of honestly lowering their ticket prices to make it more manageable, at least in my opinion, just because like I think the nosebleeds are still $20-$30 or something. And I honestly think they could be as cheap as a lot of these other NBA teams I see, where it's like $5-10 or something. It feels more affordable. You can pack more fans in, and then you're going to obviously create more noise with more people there. So I think there's something to that. And I've also seen, I never even thought about this till yesterday, but I've also seen a lot of thoughts about dimming the lighting in the lower bowl of the stadium, which I was like, oh, that seems kind of weird. But at the same time, when you watch these other games, like you watch the Lakers at, Crypto.com arena, or you watch like the Knicks play at MSG and stuff, like you could tell like the lower bowl is dark. Like the only thing that's lit up is the court. Maybe that would add to a cooler atmosphere where you're not like on bright display, just getting all excited. Like maybe it's easier for you to not. You're hiding in the shadows, so maybe it's easier for you to be loud. I don't know, but I think there's a little bit of everything that could be considered here. But I did like that he offered an idea for the fans to get louder, and that's standing at the beginning of the game until the Wolves score their first bucket. I wasn't even aware of this, but the Lynx apparently already do this, so now I think it'd probably be pretty seamless for the Wolves to do it. So maybe that can be a way to generate energy. But at the same time, I think now that he's publicly said this, I think people probably try to get louder at the games, but at the same time, it's just there is reservation there, because it's like we've had a lot more bad than good over the years. So I think the team itself also has to understand that it might take a little bit warming up to.
Yeah, exactly. And the second this team is in the playoffs, things are going to change. I mean, Target Center will be packed. People will be there, especially if they're in a series, like if they have that, I'm assuming they'll host a play-in game, just the way it's looking right now, at least, but a lot can change. But yeah, back to your comment about like ticket prices and stuff. I think it's insane that first of all, for how horrible this team has been for the last 15, or so years. And, like ticket prices are still outrageous. Like to sit in the lower bowl, but in like the corner where you don't have a great view is like $100.
Yes.
And like, first of all, Target Center is a horrible arena. Like the nosebleeds are terrible. We've seen at Target Field, we've seen at US Bank Stadium, you can make nosebleeds, have a good view and worth the price. But I mean, the nosebleeds at Target Center are atrocious. And if you can pay $10 to sit in the upper deck at Target Field, then at Target Center, why is it more expensive? I get the NBA is a more popular sport, probably, garners more revenue, all that stuff. But I don't understand how, the Wolves, who have been the worst team in the state for the longest time, still have, more ridiculous ticket prices than even the Minnesota Twins, where the Twins are, up until last year, which was a disaster, they had been selling out games like crazy. So yeah, I find that interesting, but overall, like, I'm not hurt with D'Lo's comments whatsoever. I think he's right. I think, we've talked about how, like, oh, a Monday night in Target Center, like, it's hard to get the energy to play in those kind of games. And
Yeah.
like, you can just tell there's no atmosphere. You hear the PA announcer, "Let's go Wolves," and nobody's doing it, So like,
Yeah.
there's definitely stuff to work on there, and I think that's stuff that Mark Lowry is going to come in and kind of change over time. So I'm looking forward to that, and eventually, I do think this team will get a new arena if they're going to stick around in Minnesota. So that'll be another thing too, further down the road, probably 5, 6, 7 years from now. So let's kind of transition into something more surprising, more fun that's happening with this Timberwolves team. The bench has really been carrying the squad over this winning streak here. You're getting massive contributions from guys like Jordan McLaughlin. Malik Beasley's finally turning his shot around. Taurean Prince is stepping up big time. Jaden McDaniels has really been improving, for the last couple months. What are your thoughts on this bench? I mean, this team is literally playing like 11 guys a night, and it's succeeding. So, I mean, what are your thoughts here? And does this kind of change anything for you on the outlook of the future of this team?
Yeah, I think this bench is really playing better than anybody could ever even imagined in their wildest dreams, really, as far as like max potential. I don't think anybody could even drew it up like this, where basically everything clicks all at once for everybody. Like, you'd think it'd be kind of one of those things where you get a good performance from Noel here, but then another night you get a good performance from like McDaniels or Beasley there. So I mean, it's all coming together. I mean, TP's been on fire. Beasley obviously is coming into his own again, which is very encouraging. McDaniels, I feel like it's just cash in the corner on those threes, and he also brings it on D. He had a big block against the Pistons. That was pretty sweet. But and you got J Mac in his last 12 games. He's got 45 assists to 1 turnover. So it's like it's all coming together at once, and this is amazing. I think it's kind of evening the overall evening the performance from the beginning of the season when it just was non-existent and was kind of was definitely the Achilles heel of this team. But now it feels like the strength and what's really carrying us in these wins lately. I know Cat's been great, but outside of that, and especially with D'Lo missing some time to the last couple of games, I think that's been huge for us to get that production from the bench to just keep on keeping on, and next man up. I think that's never been a real thing here, but now it feels like it is. So I think this is great to see them really come alive. I would say ever since that whole really COVID outbreak on the team and guys were kind of in and out, I feel like obviously it's bad that they all got sick and stuff, but they gave guys a chance to step up and play some significant minutes, get some run, and then I think they really put it together after that, where they finally got into their groove and really found their game. So I think that's in a way it's helped the team, and now let's hope they can just carry it forward and keep going, because obviously we're not going to. It's an unsustainable place that we're on right now, where our bench is scoring like 50 points a game.
Right.
Like I don't think that's going to keep happening. But at the same time, if they could just be somewhere a little bit less than that, but still pretty solid, where it's just timely minutes, that'd be huge, and that could take you a long ways.
Yeah, and so we're recording this before the trade deadline, and we're going to plan to release it, the morning of the trade deadline. So the way this bench is playing, as it currently stands right now, and this could change by the time this video is released, but I honestly don't want to make a move. Like, I don't want to trade a Jalen Noel, which they probably won't, but like, I don't even want to trade Beasley or Taurean Prince, man. Like, if these guys are really starting to truly turn it around, and it's not just a flash in the pan, which it could be, but I mean, we've seen this from Beasley before. Like, we know he's got this ability. Taurean Prince is a career, pretty good 3-point shooter as well. So, and he's a vet. Like, that's important to have off your bench. So guys like that, I think, those are the kind of players you need when it comes to playing in playoff series, making runs at the end of the season for positioning in the playoffs, stuff like that. So, yeah, and there's a fun group to watch too. Like, you get Jordan McLaughlin out there. Like, here's what I love about our current situation is between McLaughlin and Noel, kind of whoever's got the hot hand, the other one is basically the 11th man. So, but then with Pat Bev's injury issues, Pat Bev is going to miss a game every now and then, or multiple games. All of a sudden, that gives Jalen Noel minutes back, or that gives Jordan McLaughlin more minutes. And the bench is playing insanely well when Jordan McLaughlin's in the game. Like, he's like a plus 70 something in his last 5 games. And the Wolves are like a minus 10 when he's not on the court. So, I mean, he's been huge just in terms of playmaking, sharing the ball, speeding up the pace, like everything really. Um, so he's been huge. But yeah, I think it's great that we basically have 11 guys, and then when Pat Bev inevitably gets hurt or when D'Lo has to miss a couple games, you have other guys that can just fill in, and it's almost like a seamless transition. Obviously, you miss the scoring punch when D'Lo's out, but it almost makes up for it because J Mac gets Beasley involved, he gets Torian Prince involved, he gets McDaniels cutting to the basket. It's kind of a ripple effect, and it's crazy that we're saying this about a Timberwolves team that's never had a good bench as long as we've been Timberwolves fans. Even the Jimmy year, the bench really wasn't that good. The starters kind of had to carry us. So, and granted, Tibbs only played like 7 or 8 guys most of the season.
Yeah,
he
he always runs his players into the ground with minutes. I mean, it's happening in New York now too.
Which hilarious that Gerson Rosas is now going to be with the Knicks as well. Like,
yes, that's a fun footnote.
What an absolutely messed up situation. I'm so glad we're not the New York Knicks. But yeah, so just super exciting stuff from the Wolves, and obviously the starters are great. We love all the starters, but it's kind of fun to give the bench some love too because these guys have been working their butts off and they're really playing well as a unit, and it's allowing Chris Finch to kind of rest guys like Ant, who's been struggling lately but has been complaining about his knees. D'Lo's obviously had some on and off injury issues. Same with Pat Bev, and I've seen stuff. Vando's basically been banged up all season, which makes sense given the way he plays. He's just kind of all over the place, falling down, taking charges, stuff like that. So, any other final thoughts from you on the bench, I guess, before we move on to talking about Ant a little bit?
Yeah, real quick, going back to J-Mac, I know Finch made the comment in this presser the other night that he's basically been the MVP of the team, or at least in some regard, because, like you said, he comes off the bench and he facilitates everything. Everybody gets going because of him. I mean, I think that's a huge reason why this bench is shooting as well as it has lately, because you got J-Mac passing to J-Mac in the corner, and then you got Beasley and TP obviously lighting it up from downtown, but also just bringing a good energy, and I think that all starts with McLaughlin. So I think that's awesome that he's been able to give us those really huge minutes, like you said, plus like way in the positive margin when he's on the floor and negative when he's not. That's kind of nuts considering this is a guy that's barely been in the rotation this year. So I think it's really cool that we've he's found his place lately, and I hope this obviously can continue.
Absolutely. So let's get into Ant a little bit, just because this is probably the only somewhat red flag of what's going on with the Wolves right now. And it's only just been a couple games. Ant's had a couple 5-point games over this last stretch. They're still winning games, which is great. Like, he's not dragging the team down. His shooting hasn't been as good. He seems to be a little more passive. Like, he's not really being aggressive and inserting himself in the offense. And he's made comments to reporters about how his knees have been bothering him, and how he appreciated some of these games where he could have shorter minutes because they dominated and the bench got to play more. So he's questionable for this Kings game that we're recording before. So I'll be interested to see if maybe they give him a rest night or something. But what are your thoughts on Ant's struggles? Do you think it's directly related to the knees? Do you think there's some mental fatigue in there? What are your thoughts on what Anthony Edwards has been doing here?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of everything. I think he could probably use the All-Star break. I know, obviously, he's never played a full 82-game season. He played all last year, 72 games, so it was like pretty close. But at the same time, it's like you're probably still getting used to that, because I mean that's quite a dramatic difference from any other time in your basketball career, really, before the NBA, because at max you probably played 35 games a season or something, so you play over double that in the NBA. So like takes a little bit getting used to. Obviously, you're probably keeping your body in better shape and you're more conditioned and whatnot, but at the same time, I think there is a learning curve there as far as just being physically into it, but then mentally, I think it can take a toll on you too, because like it's just everything's going to come in waves. So for a guy like Ant, as much as there's going to be a lot of times where there's a bunch of highs and you're just feeling good about yourself, there's also going to be those lows, and I think he's navigating through that for the first time really in the young part of his career. So I think it's just part of it being a young, inexperienced guy making his way in the league for the first time. So I think there's a little bit of everything that plays into this, but I'm not too worried. But yeah, he certainly has been good lately. But it's great that other guys are picking him up, and we're still winning games, because I know Cat made some comments in his presser the other night. He said, I mean, the benefit for Ant compared to Cat's down days in the past, when Cat was playing bad, the Wolves were just slumping real hard. But then now when you got Ant slumping, it's like, oh, the Wolves are fine because the bench is just popping off. We're still winning games. We're getting by.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for him. We're basically treading water until Ant comes back, and then he feels like a guy that's going to take it over the top. So I think we're fine for now, but hopefully this isn't a thing after the All-Star break.
Yeah, I think Ant's going to be fine, and he got asked to play in that Rising Stars game. I'll be curious if he does that or not. I'm guessing he still will because I still don't think they try very hard in that game. I'll be honest, I haven't really watched that game.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's like the All-Star game where they don't try that hard. But, yeah, like I think he'll bounce back. I think a lot of it is more mental. Like the knee thing, from what I've seen, it's called like shooter's knee, and it's common in basketball players. So, I'm not too worried about that. I think he can get through that, and some rest will certainly help. But yeah, like you said, it's more of the mental fatigue probably of having to grind through an 82-game season. They're in the absolute thick of it right now. It's February in Minnesota. It's cold. It's dark. Obviously the days are getting longer, but it's the dog days of the NBA season. I think when spring rolls around and playoffs are starting to come back into the picture, the energy is going to amp up a little bit. And I think that's when Ant's going to shine his brightest, is in the biggest moments. And I still believe in him in being an extremely good player in this league. I still think he was, deserving of maybe getting that last All-Star spot, especially with, Wiggins being voted in, I think was a joke. But, so I'm not worried about Ant. Every player goes through slumps, throughout the season. And it's pretty common for second-year players, too, to kind of hit a wall at some point in their second year. So, I'm really not too concerned about Ant, and I think he'll turn it around here pretty quick. But, yeah, like you said, it's really nice that the rest of the team's picking him up and still winning games.
For sure, yeah. And I also think part of it could be, honestly, the Wolves haven't played the best of competition lately. And I feel like Ant can definitely get himself up more for games to play against the premier teams in the league more than he can for a Sunday afternoon matchup against the Pistons. Obviously, I want Ant to show up for every game, and I want him to give his best effort. I mean, he's a 20-year-old guy. I don't think he's earned that yet in the league where he can take games off. But at the same time, I can understand where that is with him. What's like, playing the Pistons on some Sunday afternoons a lot different than playing like let's say even though they're bad this year, like the Lakers on a Friday night or something in prime time, something like that, like the Wolves did earlier this year. Although Ant didn't even play in that game, but just for example, So I think that's also part of it, that we're just not playing that great of competition lately either.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too, because he's a big game guy. We saw it against the Heat here at Target Center. He absolutely got up for that game, got in Jimmy Butler's face. Dunked on a guy, even though it was called a charge. Yeah. So, he's a big game guy, and it's been really nice because Cat's just been super consistent over the last month to 2 months here.
Steady. That's steady veteran presence.
D'Lo's leadership and playmaking has been off the charts, even if his shooting hasn't been, super consistent. Pat Bev and Vando bring the contagious energy, so that starting unit's going to be fine if Ant struggles a little bit, as long as he's not ball hogging, which he hasn't been. Exactly. No. So, that's good. And then if the bench keeps playing well, that's just an added bonus. So I'm pretty excited about the direction this Wolves team's going. Obviously, this win streak's going to come to an end at some point. The schedule gets a little more difficult here coming up, obviously, because we had the cupcakes with the Pistons and the Kings. But, it'll be interesting to see kind of how they finish out the season. They're only a game back of the Nuggets. I think 2.5 back of the Mavs. Yep. But then there's a 3-game separation between them and the Clippers, and then the Lakers are a little bit further back of the Clippers. So they're kind of in a middle of the pack, if you will. Like, they're kind of in their own little spot, but there's within striking distance of Denver. So I'll be really interested to see where they can go from here.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's some room to improve, but at the same time, I think we have a little bit of cushion to fall back on if we get into a slide where maybe we play some tougher opponents back to back or 3 in a row or something. And then, you have something to lean on. But at the same time, I think there's definitely an opportunity there to move up in the standings and really compete with, obviously directly the Denver Nuggets, but also I go as far to say as Dallas or maybe even Utah if you get really hot. But I think where we're at right now is pretty safe. I like it, but at the same time, you always want more, especially a top 6 spot guarantees you a series. Not only that, but it gives you a chance to play a team that's not Phoenix or Golden State, which would not be an optimal first-round matchup.
Exactly. So we can dive more into that, especially as the season goes on here. But definitely some fun stuff going on with this Timberwolves squad. And it's so nice to just have a good NBA team in town again. Even if the West is down a little bit this year and there's injuries across the West, I'll still take it. Like,
Yes,
The Wolves
absolutely.
the Wolves are playing winning basketball. They're building something here, and there's a lot to be excited about. So that's going to do it for this edition of the North Star Takes podcast. Like I said earlier, please be sure to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button. Give us a follow on both Twitter and Instagram, and leave your comments below. What are your thoughts on the bench going off for the Wolves? What are your thoughts on D'Lo's comments? Do you think they were, out of line, or do you think do you agree with them? So, and let us know what you think about Ant's struggles too. I'm sure most people aren't too concerned about it. So, until next time, thanks for watching.